Hi, Andrew.
Hi.
I'm just going to take a minute to remind everyone what the role of an RNO is in our community. Congress Park Neighbors has been a registered neighborhood organization for more than 40 years. With an all-volunteer board and more volunteers leading projects, our goal is to provide accurate information to neighbors about neighborhood issues that the city government is deciding on and managing. Your board does not take a position on any issue without first polling affected neighbors to ensure true representation. We welcome homeowners and renters alike. This meeting is going to be recorded. It is right now. And please, as much as possible, direct questions to the chat and give our speakers an opportunity to give their presentation, and then we'll follow up with the time where questions can be answered. Is Sarah here, Maggie? Let's hold on a minute. I want to remind everyone for a minute right now, and I will again at the end of the meeting. One of the issues in Congress Park right now is the on-street trash pickup. And Councilman Hines will be having a town hall on August 24th at 6 o'clock. You can go to his website, District 10, and register for that meeting. And I encourage everyone to please attend. Also, Congress Park Neighbors on our website and through our email blast has put out a survey regarding your experience with the trash pickup. And I encourage everyone to please take it and comment. There's a place there where you can write in about how it's affected you. Maggie, do we have Sarah from the 12th Avenue Bikeway project here?
I don't see her here yet.
That's actually Walter Scheib. That's me, who I'll be presenting on that.
Okay,
on that
great.
project.
Thanks,
Yep.
Walter.
Yep, no problem.
So Walter's going to talk to us about the 12th Avenue Bikeway project. Go ahead, Walter.
Great. I'm just going to share my screen here real quick with my presentation while I'm getting this up here. My name is Walter Scheib. I'm an associate city planner on the multimodal planning team with Dottie, and just want to say thank you for inviting me to present during this evening's meeting about the 12th Avenue Neighborhood Bikeway. What I want to do is just share a quick refresher on this project and along with some recent updates about where it stands in terms of design and next steps and that sort of thing. I can also pull up some of the designs and answered questions about specific portions of the corridor if that's helpful as well. I have a presentation that'll probably take about 10 minutes, and then I also have time for questions at any point, either during the presentation or afterwards. I will note that while I'm presenting, it is sort of hard to see the chat. So either Victoria, if you want to read questions from the chat during my presentation, that's totally fine, or we can look at them afterwards, whichever works better for people.
Okay.
Great. So I'll just dive right in. So this is just an overview of the corridor. 12th Avenue is a neighborhood bikeway project that extends from Madison Street in the west, if you're looking on the map here, all the way east to the city's border at Aurora. So it's going to be, once it's installed, one of the city's longest new bikeways at 6.7 total miles. I will note that within the Congress Park Neighbors RNO, there's only about a 5-block portion of the bikeway, and then the rest is further to the east. And the portion within the RNO is between Madison and Colorado Boulevard. This project overall has many benefits, really including it's a critical east-west connection to the city's bike network that will really connect many proposed and existing bikeways, including the soon to be completed Garfield Street neighborhood bikeway, which will run through Congress Park neighborhood as well up to City Park and then south all the way down to Cherry Creek. So, and then you can see on this map here, these other dashed lines are other proposed future bikeways that'll be installed at some point in the coming years. So it shows that this east-west connection will sort of intersect with quite a few different ones. Also, the 12th Ave, it connects with quite a few other key destinations, including Teller Elementary, the Rose Medical Center, and Lindsley Park, and the King Supers and Safeway on 13th Ave, Montclair Park, amongst others. This project includes design elements that work to calm traffic and also make the corridor safer for all roadway users, which I'll talk about a few of those design elements here in a few minutes. In terms of project background and timing, this project was funded by the Elevate Denver Bond, which is approved by voters back in 2017. And then the project will be going to construction bid in spring of 2023, which means all the design will be finalized at that point, and it'll go out to bid, which means we'll get a contractor on board to actually install it. And that means it'll either be at this point, hopefully a 2023 installation as well, but potentially 2024, just depending on timing. We'll know the complete details on that after that construction bid happens next spring. As I mentioned, this project's a neighborhood bikeway, which is sort of a new type of bikeway for the city of Denver. So just wanted to provide a little bit more information about what that entails. Neighborhood bikeways are low volume and low speed streets where people riding a bike and people driving are able to share the road. And improvements are primarily made through signage and traffic calming designs that are really designed to slow vehicle speeds and prioritize only local traffic rather than through traffic traveling through the area. A neighborhood bikeway is different than a typical bike lane that you might see in other parts of the city, in that it's not a dedicated space for bicyclists. Instead, it's a series of traffic calming improvements, which are primarily focused at intersections. And neighborhood bikeways generally maintain on-street parking throughout the corridors as well. So there's typically no parking removal associated with neighborhood bikeways. I want to share a little bit more detail on the different design elements that are recommended as part of this neighborhood bikeway project. First is either curb extensions or bulb outs, which act to physically narrow the roadway, and they create enhanced visibility around corners and intersections, safer and shorter crossings for pedestrians, and then also they slow turning speeds for vehicles because they can no longer cut the corner. They have to sort of take a longer, slower turn. And then second is pedestrian refuge islands, which provide safer crossings by limiting the amount of time that pedestrians are in the vehicle travel lanes, and also provide a refuge from vehicles when crossing wider portions of the roadway. And then also there's quite a few intersections where new crosswalks will be installed to improve the visibility for pedestrians crossing at intersections. A few more elements. Mini traffic circles are used at some unsignalized intersections to slow vehicle speeds. And they're also really helpful at calming traffic in areas with significant cross traffic at the intersections. Daylighting of intersections is another technique that improves visibility at intersections by pulling back where vehicles can park. So it's pushing back from the intersection where parking is allowed and then where no parking is allowed. So it's moving it further away so you can see around that corner about and be able to see oncoming vehicles as whether you're a pedestrian or bicyclist or another vehicle even driving. It just helps you see around that corner a little bit more and avoid crashes. And then also at signalized intersections or intersections with traffic signal, leading pedestrian intervals are also used. And what they do is they provide pedestrians with a head start essentially when crossing the intersection. So the walk sign will activate before the stoplight turns green for vehicles. So it means that pedestrians are most of the way or almost all the way through the intersection and more visible to turning vehicles that have a green light. So it helps sort of prevent some of those conflicts a little bit. One other element, in addition to the neighborhood bikeway elements that I mentioned, there's also a 2-block portion of the bikeway that will be a 2-way protected bike lane. This is between Colorado Boulevard and Ash Street. So it's on the east side of Colorado Boulevard. So actually outside of the RNO's area, but it's just to the east of there. So I wanted to mention this as well. And what the protected bike lane provides physical separation from traffic, and also allows for, since it's a 2-way, it also allows for travel for bicyclists in both directions, as can be seen in this example picture here on the left. Overall, it really provides a safer and dedicated space for bicyclists in areas that have higher vehicle volumes in terms of the amount of vehicles on the roadway or higher speeds, which is the case for this portion. So I have a few more slides, but I just wanted to pause here real quick and see if there were any questions before I keep going.
I'm not seen on the chat. Does anyone else?
Yeah, I see Myles has his hand raised.
Yeah, quick question. On 8th Avenue, they did some bulb outs to narrow the lane for the cars. Yep. And they put bollards in as well as painted. And a question came up of, you're narrowing it, so what are the bicyclists supposed to do? Because the bollards are really close to the curb and you've narrowed the lanes. So what are the bicyclists supposed to do?
So is the concern in terms of potential interactions between vehicles and bicycles at the narrowed lane? Correct,
because it's almost the bollards are too close to the sidewalk for a bicycle to fit through there, but yet the bicyclist is now supposed to go into the roadway with the narrow lanes and the traffic.
Sure. So for this neighborhood bikeway design, and I can't speak to 8th Avenue, I wasn't involved with that one. I don't know the exact design for it, but for this one, most of the travel will happen within the roadway itself anyway, since this is a neighborhood bikeway. So it'll just be at the intersection. Having those bulb outs is sort of a multimodal improvement, not only for bicyclists, but also really shortening those crossing distances for pedestrians, and also pushing the parking a little bit further back so there's better visibility at those intersections. So the bicyclists would already be in the roadway at that point anyways, and then the bulb outs serve to sort of slow down traffic, create more visibility and that sort of thing.
So do you have any statistics to show that it is increasing crashes between bicyclists and vehicles to do that type of an engineering change?
Sure. So I know that our engineering team and our design standards have looked at all of that in terms of what's safer and what makes more sense. And then also with these new neighborhood bikeways that are being installed, there's some that are being installed this year, and we're doing more studies on the designs for those and if there's any potential safety concerns that come up or anything like that. We haven't seen anything in terms of additional negative interactions at intersections with the pinch points, but I'd be happy to look into additional data for you if that's helpful.
Walter, I have a couple other folks. Carolyn Caselli, go ahead, Carolyn.
Hi, my name is Caroline, and thanks for hosting this. I was just recently in Denmark, and I was pretty impressed with their biking infrastructure. And one thing in particular I noticed was they had their bike lights pretty low, close to, it's very easy to see And I'm
Yep.
really close to that Garfield intersection. The bike lights are very high. And so just curious if that's something you guys have considered of like lowering the bike lights. So that way there's a little bit more coordination between pedestrians and bikers.
So in terms of the bike signal, like the red or green signal at an intersection, is that what you're referring to, Caroline?
Yeah, so like,
Yeah.
you know, when bikes need to go, you have a little green symbol
Yeah.
and it's like, at least in Denmark, it's like pretty close to the bikers, like point of view, like they're pretty low stoplights. And I thought it was pretty, like they did that. And then they also had like, there's like the road and then one level up was bikes and then one level up was pedestrians. And so even though there's like a huge buffer here, like in the picture, they didn't actually need that much of a buffer when it was raised. It was like, you know, it's like that much, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback on that. In terms of the design for the height of lights, I don't think we are looking at lowering them currently, but we are doing a redesign of our bikeway standards at the moment. And that's something that's really helpful feedback, especially from over in Europe where they're doing an excellent job with all the bike facilities, as you've seen. So that's really helpful feedback and definitely something I can share with our engineering team in terms of something that might be more usable.
And
Andrew
is there,
Clark.
like, sorry, and is there a
Yeah, hi.
way to get involved around that? Like you said, with the engineering standards, like, is that possible to
So-
give input or?
So a lot of that is much more on the technical and engineering side of things. But I'm happy to pass along your feedback on that. But in terms of like a public process for it, it's not that type of thing like that we're doing for these bikeway designs where we're sharing it out and getting feedback. It's more, there's a lot of engineering standards and a lot of details related to that we're working on in that case.
Walter, Andrew Clark had a question.
Sure.
Hey,
Hi,
Walter.
Andrew.
Hi, I'm a road biker, so it's near and dear to my heart.
Great.
There's a bike lane which was built recently into Washington Park,
Mhm.
and it has a little series of sort of concrete curb things that sort of keep the cars out of the lane, not these vertical white posts, but little sort of humps.
Yep.
And so there's a single bike lane, you get in it and you feel like you can't get out of it except where there's a gap in these little humps. Follow?
Yep.
Like in this thing, you can weave between the vertical pillars, the vertical posts. The problem is that street sweeping equipment can't get into the lane to sweep it. And all the debris that the cars kick up obviously kicks into the lane and then stops at the curb on the sidewalk. So broken glass, stones, rocks, twigs, any garbage goes into the lane, kicked by the cars. The bicycles then have to cycle over it because it never gets cleaned, because the street sweeping machines can't get into the bike lane. And the same problem here, if you've only got one lane for a cycle, you're stuck behind another cyclist who's going slowly. So as a cyclist, it's very, very, very important that we're not cycling on broken glass all day, every day, or other debris, because it's dangerous. And it's also important that we have two lanes so we can overtake another cyclist. Now we can do that if there's no bollards, no posts, and no little humps keeping us in the lane. And also, the street sweeping machine can get all the way to the curb of the sidewalk and clear out all the broken glass. So as soon as you delineate and protect a bike lane with bollards, you're actually making it more dangerous for cyclists who use the lane, because there's debris and there's nowhere to overtake and there's nowhere to escape if a car gets into the lane accidentally, because we would just hit the bollard or we'd hit the bump or we'd hit the sidewalk when we're trying to escape a collision. And as a cyclist, I want to be able to weave quickly out of the way if a car accidentally gets into my cycling lane. And if there's too many pillars or too many bars or too many humps in the road, artificial curbs, I just can't do it. So
Yeah.
I just want to know if anyone on the team has sort of thought that through. How do you give a cyclist a way to escape? Secondly, how do you clean the bike lanes? And thirdly, does the bike lane have room to overtake between cyclists?
Sure. Thanks for all your thoughts, Andrew. Really appreciate that. I'll try to hit on each one. In terms of I'm familiar with the protected bike lane that you're talking about on Marion there. And in terms of glass or other debris getting in there, we do have more narrow street sweepers for those protected bike lanes that should be going through and taking care of that. I'll look into, it sounds like that's not the case. That's not what's happening at the moment, but I'd be happy to look into that and see what's going on there. Yes, beyond that though, for all protected bike lanes, the priority is to have our smaller street sweepers go through there. In terms of your other two questions about 2 lanes to potentially pass, a lot of the designs that we're aiming for here with protected bike lanes is to really help those bicyclists, the large amount of the city and residents who are what we call interested but concerned in terms of bicycling, who don't necessarily feel safe near traffic or anything like that. So giving them a protected bike lane where they can bike slower and feel like they're away from traffic is sort of the big priority. And definitely understand your desire to be able to pass someone as a faster cyclist. But I think that the main priority, what we're looking at now, is just making sure that there's a safe place first and foremost for those who are sort of new and interested in biking, but may not necessarily be as strong of a bicyclist as it sounds like you are. And then in terms of ways to escape, was I believe the term you used, for other protected bike lanes like the one you mentioned on Marion, they are made of concrete, so it would be hard for a vehicle to get in there and get over that. It is a potential.
Not really. It's impossible for a bike to get out, but it's very easy for a car to get in. That's the problem.
Sure. Well, yeah, I think that's something that we can, and I think sometimes it takes people a little bit of time to get used to new traffic patterns and things like that. But there are potentially times where a vehicle could drive in there, but that's not something that we see happen too often.
Walter, we have one more question.
Sure.
Charlotte.
Yes. Well, I was just wondering about all these other miscellaneous things that are traveling on our streets and where they would be routed. And I say miscellaneous because every day I see some other new contraption out there, like one wheel and motorized this and skate. But anyway, the rental scooters, the electric bikes, the skateboarders, all of those folks that I see more of them sometimes than actual bicyclists. And I'm just wondering what the plans are and how that will work. So if you could just elaborate about our realities of these other modes of transportation. Thank you.
Yep, that's a great question. And in terms of the Lyft and Lime e-scooters and the e-bikes, that sort of thing, those should operate in bike lanes. That's the goal. I know there is a lot of sidewalk riding, and that's one goal with rapidly building out more of our bike network is to make sure that there are safe spaces for those who choose to ride a scooter to actually operate while not being on the sidewalk. So ideally in a bike lane. So that's why we're trying to build out more of that. In terms of one wheels and things like that, I think they would be encouraged to operate in the bike lane as well. But yes, it's definitely a challenge in terms of new forms of mobility coming online more and more often, it seems. But the way we see it is if we have more bike lanes and more, whether you want to call them just bike lanes or mobility lanes or something else, having more comfortable spaces for anyone who wants to roll in whatever way that they see fit are able to do that.
One follow-up question.
Wait a minute.
Well, sorry,
Maria Bennett has been waiting.
good.
Maria?
Hi. Yeah, thank you. Good evening. Thanks for coming. I've got two quick questions. The first is you talked about sort of the pedestrian islands. Would we be getting one within the Congress Park portion of the 12th Avenue, given that you said the goal was not to remove parking? We don't have a boulevard that you could do that on. And then my second question is, those two intersections by Teller Elementary, I mean, the traffic calming is definitely going to be a blessing for all the kids because it's a nightmare, even with the crossing guards. But has the city done a study, given the new law that allows bikes to go through stop signs, on whether there's going to be an increased traffic of bicycles for the kids while they're walking into the school?
Yeah, great questions. In terms of pedestrian island, no, there will not be one on the Congress Park portion between Madison and Colorado. There's not one in the design. And then in terms of additional study related to the safety stop law or being able to roll through a stop sign, this data was gathered in terms of bike counts and that sort of thing back in 2021. So that would have not been factored in, but if there is somebody who's in the crosswalk, then the bicyclist would still have to stop. So if they're obeying the law, they would still have to stop there.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if there's signage or something just for the kids, because those two intersections are a disaster to begin with.
Yeah, and on my last few slides, I have a little bit more about the Teller Elementary area as well. So happy
Great,
to.
thank you.
Let's, Walter, let's finish your presentation. Thank you for taking the questions, but go ahead. Let's let him finish, please.
Great, and just quickly talking a little bit, I want to go through our public engagement process and then also a few recent project updates. The 12th Ave Neighborhood Bikeway has incorporated community feedback throughout the process. And our team has previously completed stakeholder working group meetings and then also multiple rounds of community meetings throughout both 2020 and 2021. And then along with weekly office hours have been available throughout. We've also gathered public feedback through community surveys and during the design phase with the Conveo interactive mapping tool, where community members were able to provide feedback on specific design elements. Most recently, we gathered that Conveo feedback just this past year in June and July, and be able to share a little bit more about that in a second. But essentially the project right now is moving towards final designs later this fall. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have a better idea on installation timing by spring of 2023. Sure, in terms of recent public engagement, in June, public commenting via the Conveo online mapping tool was promoted through an email blast and also subsequent promotion via Nextdoor and some other online avenues. The Conveo mapping tool was open for a community to actually take a look at the plans and provide their feedback on a map that was open for just over a month from June 9th to July 12th. And then we were also hosting office hours during that time period where community members could meet with the project team members from Dottie. So looking at all the community feedback we received throughout this whole process, overall, we have over 100 comments that we've gotten via the Conveo online mapping tool. So providing that feedback on the actual designs and concepts, and over 200 survey responses to the concept design survey, which took place in spring of 2021, along with a variety of community meetings, much like this one, and office hours sessions and that sort of thing. So overall, we found that community members have indicated that their top 3 safety concerns for 12th Ave are crossing busy intersections along the corridor, the ability to feel safe and comfortable while crossing the street on not only busy streets, but others, and then also the issue of vehicle speeding. In terms of the over 50 comments that we got just in June and July on the Conveo mapping tool. I just wanted to share a few focus comments in the Congress Park portion of the area. So just looking at the bullets up here at the top, we were able to make significant improvements to the east of the intersection with Colorado Boulevard. There were some concerns with improving the rest of the intersection, and we've looked into trying to make more improvements here beyond doing some restriping and adding some green striping down and that sort of thing. But the main problem is on the east side, the sidewalk here, the city of Denver does not own on the west side, the city of Denver does not own this sidewalk right of way. So it's tough to further expand out to have a protected bike lane as someone is moving along 12th down and then crossing. So right now there'll be wayfinding showing where to dismount and walk down to the crosswalk before getting to the two-way protected bike lane on the other side of Colorado. Potentially, if this area on the west side redevelops in the future, there could be potential to add another off-street raised sidewalk bike lane there, but just with those right-of-way constraints and the lack of the ability for the city to acquire any more right-of-way there. That's why that intersection is designed as it is. And then there also, we did have a few other concerns about how the bikeway will interact with the Teller Elementary kiss and ride, and also children walking to school in the area and that sort of thing. And our Dottie has what's called a Safe Routes to School program, and our Safe Routes to School representative is working with Teller Elementary to raise awareness about this new bikeway installation, and then also ensure that kids are dropped off in the existing Kiss and Go lane, which is on Jackson Street. So on the east side of the elementary, rather than along 12th, where there may be more bicyclists going through this area. And then there are also a few general comments we saw through Conveo about potential conflicts of traffic circles. So Dottie's using their standard designs for the traffic circles with a four-way yield at these. And this has been evaluated elsewhere in the city, and the intersection condition overall is seen as safe and beneficial, since it slows vehicles going through here, and also has pinch points that reduce crossing for those in other modes. So those are the rest of the updates I had. Happy to answer some more questions.
Walter,
Yeah.
thank you very much,
Yeah.
but we're running out of time. If
Okay.
possible, there are a couple more questions. I'd like to forward those to you
Yeah.
and
happily.
make your email available to others so they could write you directly.
Yep, I'll put my email in the chat here, or actually
That would be great. I thank you for coming. It was really helpful. Clearly you've heard many of the concerns that were raised.
Thank you all very much. Really appreciate your time.
Our next presentation is going to be on the Park Hill Golf Course development. Woody, are you here? Yes. Woody Garnsey is going to give us news on what's going on with that. Go ahead, Woody.
Hi, Maggie, am I okay to share my screen now?
Yes,
Let me-
you're sharing. It looks good.
Good, I'm just trying to get it up to go up. There we go. Hi, yes, I'm Woody Garnsey. I'm thrilled to be able to talk with you a little bit about what's going on with the Park Hill Golf Course land. You maybe haven't thought or heard about anything since last fall, when ballot measure 301 was passed and ballot measure 302 was defeated. I want to, first of all, just kind of locate for everybody so they know just what we're talking about. A lot of people don't really know the Park Hill Golf Course land well. This is Colorado Boulevard here. Here's I-70, and the golf course is this area that I'm just highlighting here. It's surrounded by a big development area here. I'll talk about it a little bit, and then a lot of industrial area here, and also north of I-70. So what's unique about this land? Well, what's unique is that this is the only piece of land in Denver that's protected by a city-owned conservation easement. Most people think of conservation easements as 1,000-acre ranches up in the mountains, but there are quite a few front range urban conservation easements, but this is the only one in Denver. And just for those of you who've never had the opportunity to spend any time on this, I just want to scroll through some pretty fabulous photographs that we've taken over time. This is looking west, obviously towards the mountains. This is a beautiful pond with a lot of wildlife and natural wetlands. Beautiful mountain, or excuse me, snow scene. This is these really don't need description. Basically, we want people to understand what a very special piece of land this is. And this is a drone photo that was taken by the father of one of our active grassroots members. There's a lot to pack into this. I'm going to try to go quickly through a little presentation I prepared, and I'll be ready to talk at the end about any questions you've got. But fundamentally, for those of you who aren't aware of it, this perpetual conservation easement was purchased in 1997 by the city for $2 million in accordance with Mayor Webb's vision to preserve it as open space and for open space and recreation uses. So what is a conservation easement? A lot of people are not familiar with that. First of all, they're created under state law, which defines conservation easements as an interest in real property, just like the deed to your house. The legal definition of an easement is an agreement that imposes limits on the use of land to maintain it, among other things, and I'm quoting now, predominantly in a natural, scenic, or open condition, or for wildlife habitat or recreational or other use or condition consistent with the protection of open land, environmental quality, or life-sustaining ecological diversity. Fundamentally, an easement prohibits development on protected land. So what does the Park Hill Golf Course land conservation easement do? It perpetually preserves the land from development for open space and recreational conservation purposes. The permitted uses under the conservation easement currently include a golf course, and any other permitted use would need to be consistent with the open space and recreational conservation purposes of the easement. So what's the current status of this land? As you probably know, it's now owned by a real estate developer that bought it in July of 2019, subject to the conservation easement. And starting no later than the spring of 2019, the Hancock administration began supporting Westside's plans to purchase the land and to break the easement in order to allow development. Soon after closing, Westside and the city entered into a written agreement where the city agreed to forbear enforcing the easement for 3 years in order to allow Westside to try to build support for mixed use and commercial development on the land. And unquestionably, prior to the election, there was some kind of a secret unwritten agreement of the Hancock administration to have the city planning and development department lead the planning effort at significant taxpayer expense. So what's the current status of Westside and the Hancock administration's development effort? I want to explain 3 things quickly. First of all, remember last November's ballot measure 301, supported by our grassroots group, and the dueling ballot measure 302, supported by the developer Westside. The result of that was a 2-to-1 victory citywide in favor of 301 and against 302. And the result is now a citywide vote is required under city law before the conservation easement could be broken or before there can be any commercial or residential development on the land. Secondly, the Colorado Conservation Easement Statute, which governs conservation easement, is critical. Basically, what it provides is that under state law, a conservation easement cannot be terminated, extinguished, released, or abandoned without a court order that, based on changed conditions on or surrounding the land, it's now impossible, and that's the word in the statute, to continue fulfilling the conservation purposes. The Hancock administration and Westside refuse to explain how they intend to deal with the state statute, despite repeated requests. And number three, despite the 301 and 302 votes and these state restrictions, beginning in early 2021, the City Planning and Development Department began a formal planning process for developing the land. It's an unprecedented planning process in Denver involving land that cannot be legally developed due to the protections of a conservation easement. And according to the documents produced in public record requests, the planning department considers Westside, not Denver taxpayers and citizens, to be its client. And the city has spent hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars and utilized thousands of hours of city staff time supporting Westside's development plans. I could explain for hours all the reasons why Denver taxpayers and citizens should view this planning process as a sham, but I only have time to really highlight three of those. First of all, the planning department formed a hand-picked, mostly pro-development steering committee for the process with a predetermined pro-development outcome. We're going to see that happening in the next few months. Number two, I want to go back to an important slide. We consider this to essentially be planning malpractice. The only land that's included in the planning process is 155 acres of the golf course land. They're completely ignoring all this critical land outside of it. And importantly, there's going to be inevitable residential and commercial development near the 40th and Colorado Light Rail Station and all the way over to Rhino in the next many years. All the yellow signs here or signals indicate property that we know has been purchased by real estate developers. There are at least 36 acres in here that two developers have purchased. That's where commercial and residential development should go, not in the open space. So it focuses only on the 155 acres. It ignores the development potential of underutilized land east of the Colorado, east of the golf course. It ignores the planning process, existing affordable housing, which is identified here, 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 and here in the area of the golf course. The total of that housing right now is somewhere in the neighborhood of 450 housing units that are deemed affordable. And it ignores significant plans for new affordable housing right here on 7 acres and over here on another 7 acres, which will break ground sometime very soon. Number three, there's been no meaningful discussion of the conservation easement and the option of preserving 100% of the space for open space. There's been no meaningful discussion of the health and environmental benefits of the preservation of 155 acres of open space. There's been no meaningful discussion of the impact on housing affordability of using metropolitan tax districts to finance the infrastructure that'll be built here. That pretty much doubles the tax and therefore doubles the tax burden and significantly increases the cost. So what's the current status of the planning department's planning process? They're planning a dense residential and commercial development on at least the west 55 acres of the land in here. They're planning on as many as 4,000 new housing units with buildings from 4 to 12 stories high, creating a canyon effect along Colorado Boulevard and blocking all views from this beautiful land that I showed you the pictures of looking west. The planning department is moving forward in the next couple of months toward an area plan approval, toward a rezoning and a development agreement that they plan to put before city council by the end of 2022, followed by a citywide vote in either April or November next year, as mandated by 301. And very importantly, on August 3rd, the developer Westside had the audacity to file a rezoning application already. The rezoning application is based on this area plan, this phony sham process. Real quickly, Denver needs park and open space. We used to be considered a city within a park. We're now a dense city with some parks. The population has increased almost 50% since this easement was purchased. The percent of land used for parks and recreation in Denver is now 5% compared to the national median of 15%. The park space per person has fallen to 8.9 acres per thousand people compared to the national median of 13.1 acres per thousand. The National Weather Service explains that we're experiencing one of the nation's most severe heat island effects, and our ground level ozone pollution is the 8th worst ranking among all large metro areas. And in 2019, EPA downgraded the rating from moderate to serious. In this April, threatened to downgrade further to severe. I'm sure all of you are aware of this because it's been well publicized. So what's our grassroots citizens group doing and what do we want? Our ultimate goal is to preserve the conservation easement and eventually have the city buy all 155 acres for a fabulous regional park. The price would be no higher than the fair market value of the land as encumbered by the easement, which would be roughly $4 to $5 million, which is about the same that the city paid for 2 acres in Southeast Denver for a park in 2019. And the money to be used for this would be the Measure 2A sales tax monies that we voted on in 2018 for a 1/4% sales tax for park acquisition and other investments. So what are we doing in our citizen group? First of all, we're interacting as much as possible with the planning department's phony planning process, trying to make as big an impact as we can. We're also working to prepare to fight against a couple of things. One is against city council action that's expected later this year to approve an area plan and to approve rezoning, and eventually to approve putting this on a ballot pursuant to 301, which would be either next April or November. We're also working to prepare for the expected ballot fight, which will be very similar to what we had to do in 2021. Westside will lead this effort and spend a fortune because they stand to make so much money. So what else have we done? What we've done is to have the benefit of the resources of a fabulous landscape architect who has volunteered his time. Why isn't this working here?
Woody, I think we're losing your sound. Okay.
Well, maybe I'll tell you what, I'll turn my camera off. How about that?
Does anyone have questions they'd like to raise?
Vicki, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are we doing? We had a fabulous volunteer landscape architect who recently retired after 12 years being a senior planner for the Aurora Planning Department. We asked him to brainstorm with us about what a possible park could look like on this land. And so what I've got up on the screen now is a drawing we call Imagining a Great Park. And here's the golf course land right here. And we're not suggesting to anybody that this is what should happen here. We're just trying to get people to think out of the box and to think what they would like to have on the land. And we have on our website, which I'll give you the link to in a minute, we have this map, and we're encouraging people to engage in an interactive survey to give us their impressions about what they think ought to go here. one thing that's important to know is this area in the upper northeast corner is 25 acres of stormwater detention. West side in the city treat that as if it's going to be included in parkland, but because it's stormwater detention, it filled up completely with water a week ago, or 9 days ago, and it's still got quite a bit of water in it. And it has limited park uses. So the actual park, the regular park uses are in this area here. And what West Side wants to do is to take the whole western third of it, block all the views, and build the kind of buildings I've talked about. So I'd encourage all of you, if you have the time and interest, to go to our website, which is yesopenspace.org. It's identified here, and the first thing that'll come up is that drawing and opportunity to interact on our questionnaire and our survey. So I'd love to answer any questions that you have. I'm sure there are a lot.
Actually, I have a question and a comment.
Go ahead, Nora.
Okay. Actually, it's more of a comment. My understanding is that the acreage that's involved here is the same acreage as that of Washington Park. And gee, I just, if I never want to think about us not having Washington Park. And it's such a great idea to turn this area, the Park Hill Golf Course, also into a park. I don't know if it would ever be as wonderful as Washington Park, but it would really be great to have that.
Well, let me just respond quickly. Those photographs that I showed you hopefully show why this could be as beautiful a park as Washington Park. And that's the way the land looks today, although West Side has unfortunately not followed through on its commitment to keep things watered the way they're supposed to. But it's a beautiful piece of land now, and this could be developed by the city if it purchased it over time, adding various amenities using these same sales tax monies. But it could essentially be a turnkey park today, because it already has paths that went with the golf course. And over time, it could be enhanced wonderfully along the lines of what we're suggesting.
Thank you, Woody. Maggie posted the link to Yes Open Space, and I would encourage everyone to put this on their radar. Woody is correct. West Side has been extremely bold in presenting plans that in fact are a long way from being resolved. So Woody, thank you for coming and giving this presentation. We have one more speaker tonight. Leslie Twarogowski is here. She's running for council at large. Leslie, I can't see you right now, but are you?
Victoria, I think I have a thing as well, correct?
I wasn't aware of that.
I'm on,
Yes, he was on the agenda.
I'm on the agenda.
Okay, let's let Leslie go first and then.
Okay, because I've waited up. It's 3 a.m. here in England, and so I have waited up for 4 hours after bedtime to be here.
Okay. Is Leslie here?
Forget me.
I don't see her.
All right, go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, thanks. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Hi, everybody. I don't know if I'm in the middle of the screen or not, but I live in Congress Park, 8th and Monroe. Like everybody I talked to so far, the new trash rule pickup mandate that has been forced upon us by Art Mejia at Doty and the city and county of Denver seems to me like fascist overreach. And everyone I've spoken to casually around the neighborhood has agreed that it's a terrible idea. We have alleys for trash. Moving our trash cans through the snow and ice is a nightmare for most people. in literally an hour, I collected 50 signatures that oppose the trash rule to move to the street. We want it back in the alleys. I would love to gather every signature from every house in Congress Park. I think it's doable. And if anyone out there would love to help with that effort, I am spearheading a petition with another gentleman, David Hill, who lives at 7th and Steele. And we would love to have help to send a very, very clear message to the city that we do not want our trash taken to the streets. It trashes the streets. It confuses pedestrians. It's in conflict with the street sweeping schedule, believe it or not. So I don't know who designed this at Doty, but obviously they weren't talking to each other. And it's not efficient. If you use the alleys, you catch 2 houses with 1 pass through the alley and you drive 17 miles. If you have to drive down every street, both sides, and every avenue, both sides, with a truck that only picks up on one side of the truck, you do 54 miles with a much bigger truck that has far less miles per gallon than the nice little trucks we used to use down our alleys. So somewhere, Congress Park's mini garbage trucks got moved or stolen. And every time we ask Art Mayhew where they are, he says, oh, I'll get back to you, I'll get back to you. But he never does. And he just keeps lying to us that it's more efficient. It's not. It's far less efficient. It damages our trees. It damages our cars. It leaves trash on the streets. The machines tip the cans over and leave them. And I actually spoke to a driver the other day who had just dropped a can on the side of the road. And I said, hey, pick that up. Oh, I didn't do it. I said, you did. I saw it. I videotaped it. And so this whole problem is turning into a colossal nightmare. And I question why this is. And here's the answer. Art Mayhew used to work for Republic Industries in California, where he was in charge of about 400,000 homes and a gigantic contract. It's basically a monopoly to pick up trash.
Andrew,
He gave it, yeah.
Andrew,
Yeah.
could you talk about your petition and where people could sign it?
Yeah.
When it's available to be signed?
Sure. One question is, would it be helpful to the residents of Congress Park that we had an online petition, or would they prefer something in the mail? Because we can do either. We can go door to door. We need volunteers. If anyone is interested in helping with that, that would be great.
Post your email on the chat.
Okay.
And I will make sure that it's available.
Chat's not working for some reason here. Show chat previews. I can't see the chat. Can you see it? I can't type into the chat, I don't think. For some reason. Oh, there we go. Wait.
And I would encourage everyone that can to sign it. And I will repeat again, Andrew, I don't know if you were aware of it, but Chris Hines has chosen to have a town hall on the 24th of August at 6 p.m. A week from today. You can register on his website. Please do. The more people that attend, the better. Congress Park Neighbors Board wrote him a letter last week encouraging him to come with a plan to return all bins to the alley and to start using the small trucks that are being used in other neighborhoods, and that at his town hall, he needed to come and address when he would be doing that.
Right. Just to finish off my presentation, what happens with trash collections in big cities where they're run by the city, it's a not-for-profit system. if Republic Industries or one of the big companies gets their teeth into a city, they can charge monopolistic pricing for moving our trash. And as we've seen already, they're starting this pay to throw system where you have to pay to have your trash picked up. We have to pay the city, even though we already pay real estate taxes for the city to do this. We still have to pay them another fee now to do this, but they don't give us any refund on our real estate taxes. So if someone's telling me you got to move your trash to a convenient place for us, which is basically saying you got to do our work, and we want to charge you more, and we're not going to give you a refund, that's three different places where they're stealing my money and my time. But if you think about it from the perspective that they really want to just give it to Republic Industries, and Art Mayhew used to work there, it's pretty clear that he's doing this so that he can hand this contract back to his old employer, move back there, and then get a pay rise. There's no other sort of logical explanation, because he's a public servant. He should be doing what we ask him, and so should Chris Hines. So I'm very vociferous about this. I think we all should be. We're being duped. There's a switch coming, and they're trying to trick us by telling us that it is environmentally friendly and more efficient, when clearly a high schooler could tell you that it isn't. So that is the presentation. If anyone would like to help me in gathering the signatures and convincing the city not to do this, because it's going to happen citywide. There's going to be, 400,000 homes, whatever we got in Denver County, all being charged $50 a month to move their trash, and that is not okay. Please get in touch, and let's get together and have a meeting and figure out how to get some signatures in front of these people. Thank you very much indeed.
Yep.
Appreciate
Thanks,
your time,
Andrew.
Victoria.
Also, there is a survey about your experience with trash that Congress Park Neighbors put out that you can also write comments in, and I encourage you to use it. It looks like Leslie is here now. Leslie, would you like to say a few words? Thank you, Andrew, for bringing that to the front.
Sure.
Hi, and thank you for being patient with my late arrival. My name is Leslie Twarogowski, and I am running for Denver City Council at large, and I've been listening for the last few minutes. I know that the trash issue is an enormous issue. I've been hearing a lot about it here in Park Hill as well. I don't know, in the months coming forward, obviously we're going to have many candidates, not just city council, but mayoral candidates as well. And to be quite frank, as much as I would love to say that this change would come out of city council, this is very much going to be a mayoral decision coming forward, whether they continue with this process that has just been approved. Personally, I would have never voted for this. I agree with others who say that our tax dollars are already paying for this. And on a personal level, as a family of 5, this is going to hit us pretty hard. So I don't want to make any false promises as a candidate, because I don't know what city council will be able to change in the months or year going forward. But it's something that I'm very concerned and, quite frankly, very upset about. I didn't plan on, when I spoke, to start off with trash. There are so many big problems in the city of Denver: affordable housing, safety, guns, so many things that are really more life or death situations. But this is also extremely important to just about everyone I talk to. So sorry if I didn't start off with my stump speech, but thank you for allowing me to join your group and listen for a few minutes on what's going on. I was born and raised in the city of Denver, and very close to Congress Park. I grew up at 620 Columbine. So I understand very much what your neighborhood is concerned about, and I too am concerned. On a happy note, I was thrilled to see that the Congress Park pool reopened, and it's not the hot mess that it had been for the 40 years that I knew it. So there are good things that are happening, but I too am very concerned about things that are happening, particularly in the final months of this administration, and trying to work my way through of what I can help amend, for lack of a better term. So thank you again for allowing me to join a few minutes late. And I'm open to any questions. And I don't know how much time I was allotted here on the agenda. So please go ahead.
Leslie, thank you for coming. I'm sure we'll meet again in the future. And you're right, trash is a really big deal here. So my final announcement is that the Summer Congress Park newsletter is currently being delivered. And if anyone has articles they would like to write for the fall issue, Wendy would love to hear from you. And I'm going to sign off and say goodnight once again, reminding everyone to.
Oh, Vicky, can I talk about BRT?
Sure.
I'll just quickly go over this. Bus rapid transit on Colfax is moving forward. I'll try to start writing articles about it. Basically, it's going to be a center lane bus, not speedway, but route. And we're going to lose 1 lane of traffic on each side. And the big difference will be the center running bus lanes will actually be a barrier between the neighborhoods on Colfax. And they'll only allow left turns if you're heading west at Madison and Fillmore. So all of the traffic that would normally be able to turn left anywhere they wanted will be focused to those 2 streets. So I have been in the stakeholders meeting and I'm trying to get information as to what the impact of that traffic will be on those 2 side streets, as well as what will happen at 14th after they've moved those 2 left turns there. And I've been asking since February about some data. They're actually going to be applying for federal money. And supposedly they've completed their traffic studies, but they will not talk about any of those impacts or what the traffic level will be on those 2 streets. So I'm going to be reaching out to City Council as well as the state to try to just get some pressure to say, answer some questions. And I'm going to try to meet with maybe some of the local people who are going to be impacted to see if we can apply some pressure for them to at least tell us what the plan is. So that's all I've got.
Okay. Thank you very much. BRT should be on everyone's radar. It's ways out there, but it's going to have a huge impact and many people don't know. Thank you everyone for coming. Please contact Andrew for the petition. Please attend the August 24th town hall meeting. Please do the survey that Congress Park Neighbors has out right now. So thanks everyone, and have a good evening.
I'm going to put my contact info in the chat.
Great.